inside a well, life can get tangled. Might the money. Might the money. Might the money. I'm making money, might the.
This podcast or broadcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, health, tax, or professional advice. Always consult a licensed professional for specific advice related to your situation. Thank you. All right, this is Ephraim Simmons. We doing a new segment. I'm talking to our efficiency expert, Jasmine Johnson, and today we're gonna be talking about transforming from your main job to your side hustle. And I'm gonna ask her the first question today. Is that we talk a lot about value problems. Most of my audience works 8 hours, spends 2 hours on their side hustle, but feels like they ran a marathon. Is it a time problem or a context switching problem?
Well, my answer to that question directly would be it's cognitive fiction. So every time you switch from the corporate compliance to a creative founder, your brain pays about a 23-minute reload text. And if you check your work email while you're writing your business plan, you just waste another hour of mental energy in 5 seconds. You aren't tired for really necessarily working. You're tired from switching from that corporate compliance to that creative founder mindset.
When you done research, you can see sometimes you see a YouTube short or some type of Facebook reel when they talk about when we go to school system, they taught you all your life to be compliant. And that's what they say the school system is. It's a system of compliance so that you'll be an effective worker and not someone who's a boss. What do you think about that?
Think school is necessary up until a certain point in your life. And I do agree that it trains you. Like I mentioned on a previous episode, you were thinking in the Industrial Revolution time that schools were basically built like factories. You go to school from 7 to 3 or 7 to 4, depending on the school schedule. You're sitting in the classroom, you're all doing work. It's kind of like building a car for Ford or whatever, right? So it's basically training you to be in a job somewhere, and that's why that's what education does, right? So that's why we have so many jobs, so many titles, so many corporations out here. But I guess you could say the 5%, and maybe not even that, the 1% of people that starts these businesses, you can consider them the creative founders of their industries because they took nothing and made something. So, for example, I work a corporate 9 to 5 job. I went to school 4 years. University of Memphis, financial degree. I'm working for somebody that founded a company back in 1884 that's still thriving today. And that person decided to take advantage of the war that was going on and just built a profitable business upon it. In my opinion, wherever you see a problem, you can most likely start a successful business. Like, for example, in the pharmaceutical industry, what's the problem? People are sick. You have doctors and you have people that own these medical companies that distribute drugs and all types of stuff. If somebody's having a problem with their finances, you look for someone that owns their own that's a CPA of their own company in the financial field. So that's kind of my opinion on that. I do think school is necessary up to a certain point, but I feel like they should push entrepreneurship more in the school system rather than just pick a career, study for this career. This is the career you're gonna do for the rest of your life, and you're gonna be working for somebody else basically because it's taught to you know apply for jobs, get a good job, and be complacent.
Yeah, most entrepreneurs, when they tell their story, most of them say that I just couldn't work for anybody else. I just couldn't do it. And that's why they're entrepreneurs. When you started your business, did you have a dream of eventually working for yourself, or what sparked you to be an entrepreneur?
The only thing that sparked me to be an entrepreneur is the fact that I wanted multiple sources of income. And no, I did see myself being my own boss. I still do to a certain extent. I guess I wouldn't say I'm fully entrepreneur based because I like stability. So I want to still have that source of income coming in, even if, I'm not doing my entrepreneurial business. So I'm still in it limbo area of being completely independent from my job. But what I will say is from what I have learned, and it's not because I don't like my job, it's more because I want to be able to make my own schedule. I want to be able to have leisure whenever I want. I don't want to be on somebody else's clock and I don't want to be working for somebody. So I guess that is true. But I'm taking the skill set that I have gained over the years because what do entrepreneurs do? They take a bunch of skill sets they gain from different places and they create their own business. So that's kind of what I'm attempting to do at this point in my life, especially with my new kid on the way. And who knows, that might just be a side thing for me or that might become my main source of income. So only time will tell.
We recently had a guest, Leah Williamson, and she's doing a new course for those who are working from 9 to 5 and deciding that they may want to be an entrepreneur in the future. I know you was there when we interviewed her. What did you think about her course that she's offering?
I think it's great for people that need that type of guidance that don't really know how to start from step one, that's kind of new into the entrepreneur field and that want to transfer. They just really don't know how to start, right? I think it's for those type of people, and I think it's a good thing that she's doing for those type of people. And I would highly recommend anybody to take their course that's not sure on the direction they want to go and not sure what they want to do. But if the people that are kind of seasoned and have trial and error, then I would say they could benefit from it too. But they might not necessarily find it as beneficial as somebody that's a newbie in the entrepreneur field.
Yeah, we talked about context switching. I know that's a new term that a lot of people may not be familiar with. But when you talk about context, you're looking at the where you are right now and you want to put things in perspective. And then when you switch, you got to go from one perspective of being a worker bee to being a boss. And I know a lot of people may have a problem thinking like a boss because, like you said, they always been trained from kindergarten to be a worker bee. I know I have my grandbaby and I keep trying to teach her how to think like a boss. One thing is to work, get paid by the hour. Another is to be paid by the project. What do you say about context switching?
Well, to me, context switching in a nutshell is when your brain, like you said, jumps back and forth between different tasks instead of focusing on one at a time. So it's I feel like switching, it can be used as an excuse because people can say, oh, I'm distracted because I have to do this and I have to do that, you know. So I guess for example, you're texting, right? And then you switch over and you want to answer email and then you're checking Instagram and then you go back to work. I feel like context switching it can be used as an excuse for people not to do what they need to do and necessarily in the entrepreneur field because your brain does have to reset and say, oh, I got to get refocused on what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's the same thing with switching from a 9 to 5 to your actual entrepreneurial job.
Yeah, because even though I'm trying to train her to be a budding entrepreneur, I still find out that she has that worker bee residue on her and she keeps trying to work for the hour. But we asked you this other question. We took that disassessment and you came back as a DC. And so that means that they're saying that you love order. How do you hard petition your brain so the 9 to 5 doesn't bleed into your 5 to 9? In other words, what do you do to turn off some of your DC and to go into another form of thinking where you are more creative and you more productive for your own self?
It's really my setup. So I use physical triggers. I have a different laptop, a different chair, and even a different scent for my business hours. When I'm at home, especially, like I don't just change tasks. I say, okay, this is what I need to get done today, and that's what I'm going to do. I switch my hat, so whatever I did from the 9 to 5, completely cut off. I don't even look at my work laptop. I have a whole nother laptop that I use for my business, and yeah, that's pretty much how I do it. Like I have to forcibly leave my stuff in the car that I do from 9 to 5 because that's what I do all day. And I have to go over and say, okay, this is the test I need to get done today for my business. This is what I need to do to obtain new clientele. And this is the mindset I'm in now. It's like a whole different setup for me.
I guess I was different. I was kind of the person when I went to school and the bell rung, I just threw my papers in my book and I was gone. My papers would be all wrinkled up. So when I worked for 9 to 5, I basically didn't take anything home. I just went. When I left that place, I was through with them for that
Mm.
day. But it works that way. But let's talk about the you being a new entrepreneur. Why being new to the game, we say 3 years, is being better than a veteran? Do you find out that since you haven't paid your dues and you haven't learned anything that's bad and you are around new people, well, old entrepreneurs, and you see what they do good and when you see what they do bad, does it help you to be more efficient and be more profitable in what you're doing?
10 to 20 years and they're not profitable or they're not moving or they're not scaling or they're not growing, right? Because you see so many businesses fail and some people just don't give up. And that's a good thing. I think how you use your time to be efficient is the best way to counterattack, I guess, they claim against being a veteran in the business because at any age, I've seen
Okay.
young entrepreneurs, at any age, I've seen young entrepreneurs, I've seen old entrepreneurs, I've seen people that I've talked to. You can be successful in your business. And it's all about how you measure your goals too, because what a veteran's goal may be or what a new entrepreneur's goal may be different from, a vet. And so like I just think time management overall can helps your efficiency in your business because I'm not finna sit up here and waste time sending out emails or posting on social media constantly because there are apps that can do that for me. I don't necessarily have to do that. Like I feel like I can find an app, I can find not even a person, I don't want a person doing it because a robot will do it quicker and be more efficient. I can find instead of processes and systems to where everything is automated and I really won't have to waste time even acquiring leads if I don't need to because I can do that through something like Zapier or through a lead funnel tunnel like Tanika has mentioned in the past. They don't want to adopt new practices, new technology, and to be more efficient. And that's why a lot of them go out of business.
Well, speaking for somebody who's been in business for over 35 years, some stuff is just too new. And then other stuff is like I don't know if I can trust it because I'm trying to do this grind and I just don't know if I can trust it. How much of that have you run into?
And I'm a new entrepreneur, so I'm trying everything. I'm looking through things. I'm doing my research, and I'm seeing how different processes and how different apps work versus the others, and I'm comparing and contrasting. So I haven't run into anything where I'm just like, oh, I don't trust it. I mean, and then you have studies and trials out there on these new products that are coming out, and they'll pretty much give you an overview of how to work them, how to and how they can help your business because not everything is not for everybody, you know. My 9 to 5 gave me a shield against imposter syndrome because imposter syndrome is that this is what I think. You can tell me if I'm wrong. It's believing that you're in the it's believing that you can't do something that you're most likely qualified to do. Correct?
Well, it's a sense of confidence, really, because,
Mhm.
if I've done it before, I believe I can do it again. But if I have not done this before, sometimes in the back of your mind, you kind of feel unsure. I don't know if I can do this. And then you in this position, and people, like if you are their supervisor, they believe in that you can supervise them. But if you have not supervised people before, you be like, I'm learning like you learning. But people
Yes.
don't want you to learn. They want you to know what you're doing.
Yeah, so okay, I guess with that, my 9 to 5 helped me with that because I was fresh out of college. I wanted to land a good job or whatever, right? And I got put in positions. I got to put in so many uncomfortable. I feel like uncomfortability is the best way to grow, FYI. But I got put in so many uncomfortable positions, so many uncomfortable leadership roles, so many uncomfortable just everything to where I was forced to kind of just grow and become, I guess, a better version of myself in my job because not all jobs have to where you can I ain't gonna lie, I traveled the first year of my job, I traveled the most I've traveled in my life, and I was going to seminars, I was going to trainings, I was doing all types of stuff. And obviously, it was grooming me to be the perfect employee, but it also taught me a lot of life skills. So I feel like my 9 to 5 helped me gain that confidence in my company that I'm building, and it also showed me that hey, you can do this. This is something you probably well, it's not something you probably, it's something you are already doing, and you're good. You don't have to panic. I feel like I'm not
Comfortable?
competent enough to do certain things, then I end up overcoming it. So it's a mind thing. Like I said, it's a mind thing. And if you can get your mind together and think your way out of those situations, I feel like imposter syndrome is just a thing, and it's a phase, and it goes away pretty quickly.
Well, one thing I like to do is read autobiographies and listen to biographies because, nothing's new under the sun. And if you read enough, you'll find out somebody who may have had the same situation that you have had. And then you find out how they were able to overcome a situation that you may be encountering. One thing I like is like Julius Caesar when he had a hard battle and it looks like his group was not going to win. He put on his red cape, which was highly visible, and would go to the front line and fight with the troops. And what happened was when they saw him fighting on the front line, which is not normal for someone who's a supervisor, they decided that they would fight harder too. So, that does give you some type of reference to it. But let's talk about emotional regulations now. And let's go back to that disanalysis. I'm a DCI, and I usually use talking to disarm the room when I have some conflict. But they saying that because you're a DC, you're likely to be silent and analyze what's going on. How has emotional regulations actually affected the bottom line of an efficiency system?
You was asking about emotional regulation actually affect the bottom line of an efficiency system. Could you go back a little deeper into that? Like, what do you mean by emotional regulation in comparison to efficiency system?
Well, a lot of people don't understand emotional regulation is pretty much a form of emotional intelligence. That means that you're going to take
Right.
control over yourself and you're not
Right.
going to do anything to, even though you may want to tell somebody something and come out, that come out yourself, but you're going to regulate yourself and say, be quiet. Don't do that. Don't say that. Don't go out of character.
Okay, I think I get what you're asking then. I got you.
Right.
So I think that emotional regulation can benefit an efficiency system because, like you just said, if you're the type of person to just go off and not really care and can't really hold your temper, especially when you're under pressure, then you probably shouldn't be a CEO. And if you are, you need to have somebody there that can compensate for the weakness that you have so that your efficiency system will not fail. So I guess if I'm in a meeting with a client and it's an intense meeting, I don't have a regulator. It's just me and a client, and a client is a little bit rude, and a client is not I guess buying into what I'm saying and just insulting my business. You got one or two options. You can be cordial and um you can be cordial, you can talk to a client and say, I respectfully, I'm going to end this meeting. I thank you for considering me. Or you can insult the client back and make them feel dumb. So it's two different ways that you can deal with it. So to be more efficient, I could add somebody else in the room to help de-escalate the situation, which I've seen on my 9 to 5 job. That's happened with our clients before. Yeah, I think that's my opinion. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
Well, no, both of us share the DC component, but when things get stressful, my C tends to peak more than my D. And, of course, I have the I too. But when I become cautious, I become awfully quiet. And I kind of like let people act out whatever they want to do, me fully realizing that if I say something wrong, it's going to be held against me. Or I may say something I can't take back. So the C kicks in. And so people have to actually goat me to say something at all because I'm not saying nothing. I'm just shutting down and let my C do what it's supposed to do. Because if I let my D act up, I start telling folks something. Occasionally, in my 35 years, someone has pushed me so hard that I let my D act. And they yell at me, I yell back at them. They tell
Yeah,
me,
yeah, I'm saying that's a natural, response as humans, from a psychological level. Like you're built to want to protect yourself, like survival of the fittest, right? But in business, you have to put on a different cap. Like we both know that you have to put on a different cap to say, okay, I'm going to have this mindset going into this place, even if I have to deal with difficult people, I know how to emotionally regulate. And there are so many classes that you can take for this, and there's so many resources out there to help you get better at regulating your emotions because I've had to get better at regulating my emotions even while I've been pregnant.
well, I was with the state. They had this learning pyramid, and I completed the pyramid before I left the state. And we had all kind of classes. I mean, we started at the lowest part of the class and got to the tip. As you go to the tip of the learning pyramid that they had constructed for us, you learn how to be more collaborative. You learn how to be more strategic. You learn how to really be outside yourself and be more team oriented. And I
Mhm.
think that when people push you and they start talking sideways, you got to understand what the big picture is and why you actually there. And you got to get outside of yourself and understand what the big picture is. But let's before we leave this program, let's talk about we see a high engagement on when we talk about business entity formations. Why should someone in a 9 to 5 set up their LLC today instead of waiting until they quit?
Well, for me, a LLC is really just a smart move with intention, right? So it keeps your personal life protected while you're still working on building and, growing. It gives you space to grow and have some on the backside just in case you need to fall back on, right? To me personally, I like knowing I can build business credit quietly in the background. So when it's time to fully step out, it doesn't feel like I'm taking a huge risky leap or whatever. It feels more like I've already built the bridge and I'm just ready to walk across it. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, when they say when opportunity does not knock, build a door. I know when I decided that I was going to leave the state, I started building my door so I could leave. I don't necessarily form an LLC because, basically I don't like LLCs. Uh,
Why not?
well, a lot of people, you got to talk to your tax advisor. Yeah. But a lot of times people think the LLC is the thing, far as if I'm a sole proprietor, a sole member LLC, and I have to use a Schedule C for my tax return and I do a lot of write offs, I'm more subject to an audit. Okay.
Right.
If I'm a multi member LLC, I have to file a 1065. So I'm in a partnership. So I necessarily may not feel like um, you know, running things through the corporation is the partnership is the best thing to do. I may not want to have other people involved in my taxes, but you have to file a 1065. And then if I'm going to be an LLC corporation in Tennessee, I might as well just be a corporation because I'm paying extra money to the Secretary of State where I'm instead of paying $300 for my annual report, I could be paying $20 as a regular corporation. So I don't understand why being an LLC corporation is really valid in Tennessee. You have to look at what your state charges for the LLC, far as Secretary of State, to see if it's any cost benefit to it. But in Tennessee, it's no cost benefit to be an LLC corporation.
That makes sense. It's like, yeah, because I was just saying it'd be more efficient to be a corporation because, like you said, the cost sector on it. You don't want to be paying more money, and you're under a limited umbrella versus a corporation. It's an expensive umbrella, and you won't have to pay as much. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, when I worked for the state, I used to have so many people come in and someone told them to do an LLC. They go in and pay the $300 and so dollars to be an LLC. And then a year later, they're coming to close down the LLC because they used to
Yeah,
be a sole proprietorship. They didn't have to file any formal tax returns, to do their business tax or anything like that. But now they have to pay the Secretary of State $300 every year. Then they have to pay a franchise tax. That's another $100. So they went from paying nothing to $400 every year. So they just said, um, I just be a regular sole proprietor again. But I think that it's important to talk to a tax advisor because you got to know what entity is best for you. Going back to the question, I like the fact that you said that you would start it early so that you can start building up history for your business credit. Because, a lot of
yeah,
times they say you're not seasoned until you have been in business for 2 years. So if you wait until after you leave, then you have to wait another 2 years to get good business credit. But if you start while you're in your other job and you wait the 2 year period, when you start, you already have some season on you. You got a little salt and pepper on you.
exactly.
But we're gonna talk about closing this session. If you had to choose between a 9 to 5 that pays $200,000 a year, but is inefficient and chaotic, a $70,000 job that is perfectly automated, which one gets you to your first million faster? The
Let's see.
$200,000 or the $70,000?
I mean, honestly, I'm just thinking about it, and I could be wrong, but I'll choose the 70K job because it's fully automated and efficient, right? A 200K job sounds good, like on paper, but if it's chaotic and draining all my time and energy, and it's hard to build anything outside of it, I just don't think it'll be worth it. I think with structures and system, I get my time back, and time is what let me think. It lets me plan, it lets me invest, it lets me create more streams of income, right? And to me, my first million will come faster when I can build on a solid foundation and when I'm not stuck striving in constant surviving in constant chaos.
Yeah, people don't understand in the job market. If they pay you $200,000, that means you're gonna have at least $400 to $700,000 worth of problems that you have to deal with.
Exactly.
It makes it hard for you to leave that place of employment and leave the job behind you. You have some people who are bosses and they texting you, after hours, and they calling you after hours, and they're emailing you after hours, which is totally illegal. But if you're
Yeah.
on salary, they have an excuse because they say that you're always available to us because you're on salary. You have to be exempt and unexempt. You have to know the employment law. You have to talk to an attorney to make sure that you exempt or non-exempt before you start engaging in behavior. But I agree with you. I would take the $70,000 job because I would like to know that things are not chaotic and
Yeah.
I know that my job is safe because the more chaotic it is, you make the wrong decision, say the wrong word, then next thing you know, you're getting a pink slip. And then a lot of times people got to look at their lifestyle. You said you're having a baby. I wouldn't want to be under constant stress and I know I'm making lifestyle changes. I like to know that things are efficient. I like to know that when I get ready to go to bed, I ain't worried about this, that, and the other happening or not happening. It just is.
Yeah, because like work-life balance is important. I'm realizing that even more as I get closer to my due date, that I'm going to have to set aside time for my child. I can't just work, 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 work. I have to have time for him that's coming into this world because he didn't ask to be here.
But a lot of people don't understand how important work-life balance is until they have a traumatic situation in their life. You should be able to go to work and come home on the salary that they have given you and leave it there. But
Right.
if you have to constantly take things home to work on, if you constantly have to deal with problems outside of the workplace, if you have to do all this, it's not worth it. I think one of the most challenging episodes in my life when I was a general manager for a restaurant. Because basically, until they got other management, they used to call me for everything. I'm
Yeah,
like,
because you become a slave to that job at that point, right?
well, yeah.
It's barely no freedom, you know?
Yeah, but when the owners told me what they wanted to pay me to be the general manager, I insisted you need to get some assistant managers because I can't work for that and be working 19 hours a day and all this other stuff. Somebody else needs to deal with these problems because you ain't paying me enough to deal with these problems. And it was chaotic, but it is what it is. But I understand why I went to accounting and not into a management in the business school.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, a lot of times when people are, like you just said, 19 hours. Oh my God, I couldn't even imagine working 19 hours. Yeah, I've gotten close to 16 hours a day when I was like in high school, transitioning to college. But 19 hours is just way too many. But I was going to say that a lot of times what people don't realize is their values. So, like, you're working that 19 hours, and you're only getting paid with maybe not even $26 an hour to do that. Like you could be making 3 times as much, or maybe even 10 times as much if you were doing your own thing. And there are variables and everything, but if you set it up and have a strong foundation, then you could be making that million easier than working those 19 hours only making $25 an hour because you ain't gonna never get there with that.
I think people don't understand the game of salary. When I was the general manager of the restaurant, I see somebody getting a lot of overtime. So my job is to go in and say, hey, let me make you the kitchen manager. So now I pay you an extra $200, $300 in salary, and now I got you working 50, 60 hours for free because
Salary is a trap.
well, it's a game. You have
It's
to
good
actually
and
look at it.
bad. It depends.
Well, no, see, people love the steady money, but the
Yeah.
obligations behind the steady money can be real traumatizing because I realized when I was a senior accountant, people used to be mad at me because I used to make like $58,000 on this grant, but I used to work like 50, 60 hours. Sometimes I do the math. I'm saying, hey, I'm supposed to be making $40, $50 an hour, but now because I'm working so much, I'm only making like 25. And a lot of people just don't do that. So I think that everybody who is working on salary, you really need to do the math to see how much you're really making per hour with all the extra hours you are putting in. And then you actually have to look at all the extra expenses that you have because, it's one thing to be an employee, but it's another thing to be a supervisor. And you're a supervisor, they expect for you to bring donuts. But they don't necessarily going to reimburse you for the donuts you bring to your staff. You do that to keep up morale. There are extra expenses it costs to be the boss or the supervisor at that place that other people just don't realize that if I was not at this position and I was just plain worker and I'm getting overtime, I might be more favorable economically than I am being on salary.
Yeah, totally agree, 100%. Yeah. Mentioned donuts. I actually bring donuts every Tuesday to my job, but I don't pay for them. The company does. So I'm just like, whatever.
Well, at least they do that for you.
Yeah, because I wouldn't be doing it myself.
Hey, if you understand how important the morale was, I'd pay the extra $10 or sometimes $25 to have smiling employees than to have to deal with problems all week, all day.
Yeah.
You never know how far a donut would go.
That makes sense.
But we're about to wrap up our program today, and this is the efficiency expert, Jasmine Johnson, I'm talking to. Is there any last comments you would like to make?
I mean, I guess I would just say evaluate your business. Make sure you're using all the right systems and processes in order to be the most efficient you can be. Of course, you can. I want to say hit me up. That sounds so unprofessional. But you can find me on the Mic'd Up Money website, and you can book a consultation. And I'll be more than happy to talk to any of our listeners out there. And yeah, that's all I have.
Well, I just want to tell people, especially those who are not automated, you probably do need to get automated because AI is really making inroads and people are finding out with the right software and tools they can save money, save time, and make what they're doing grow better and faster.
Yeah.
And be more profitable. But please look at this episode and look at our short clips on all social media platforms. We on YouTube, we on Instagram, we on Facebook, we on TikTok, and we want you to like what you see. We like you to subscribe to our channel. And we'd like for you to give us some comments. If you like what we're doing, tell us. If you want us to give us suggestions for new shows, or you need more insight on what we're doing, or you want to look at one of our tools, please go into Mic'd Up Money to our website, mic'dupmoney.com, and that's MICDUPMONEY.com, and you'll be able to click on the free tools and you will start getting tools from us. Also, if you want to get our newsletter and be a paid subscriber, we have our Level Up Playbook where you'll get different tools from us every month to make your entrepreneur experience better. Again, this is Ephraim Simmons, the business strategist for Mic'd Up Money. And
this is Jasmine Johnson, your efficiency expert.
Right? Stay fresh, stay new, and stay mic'd up. We out of here.
That's a wrap for this week on Mic'd Up Money. Don't forget to grab your free tools at mic'dupmoney.com. Follow us at Mic'd Up Money on all social platforms and keep taking your next right money move. Until next time, stay reset, stay ready, and stay mic'd up.